Hello, everybody. Welcome to our small business webinar. I'm your Congresswoman Barragán, and if you're watching, that means you want more information on small business, and we have an update for you today on what's happening on in Washington D.C. as well. So it's at 2 o'clock, and we have a few participants that are adding on as we speak. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to first start by thanking you all for joining this small business town hall webinar. As I mentioned, I represent the California's 44th. This is the area that covers San Pedro, Wilmington, Carson, Watts, Southgate, Linwood. It's very big in the North Long Beach area. And so if you're a constituent, if you're a small business in our constituency and you need help, you should feel free to call our office for any assistance. Now, we're hosting this meeting because we all recognize how rough the COVID-19 health crisis has been on small business, for both the workers missing their paychecks and the small business owners worried about meeting their responsibilities and keeping their businesses afloat. We have gotten lots of phone calls from small business owners, entrepreneurs who have questions about the loans, what's available. Joining me today is Victor Parker, and he is the Los Angeles District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration. And so in a moment, we're going to hear from Mr. Parker. Now, during this webinar, our objective is to give you information about resources that can help your small business get through this challenging period. Number two, explain some of the problems with the first wave of small business assistance and let you know what might be coming in the next round of federal relief programs for small businesses, which Congress and the White House came to a deal on just today, literally within the last hour. So we also want to answer your questions and hear your concerns. Now, prior to this webinar, you should have received a form to submit your questions. We will do our best to get as many questions as we can in the 1 hour that we have. We're also going to be taking questions through the chat feature when we get to that time. So you can also ask there. So you may know that Congress passed legislation that was supposed to support small business in response to COVID-19. That was the first round of the CARES Act. Now, in that legislation, I'm going to just briefly describe them, and Mr. Parker may spend more time on them, is the Economic Impact Disaster Loans and Payroll Protection Program, which is often referred to as the PPP program. They were both designed to provide emergency funding for you to meet your payroll and operating cost. And Victor can go into this more. They provided for forgivable loans. On some instances, it was a much larger amount than the other loan. And unfortunately, the programs were not adequately funded. And before most small businesses could get help. Now, some of you may have read and heard about some of the unfortunate instances where you had some of the larger corporations took advantage of some of the loopholes in the program and used the resources intended to help some of the smaller businesses. So we've heard, a business may have gotten $20 million when, your small mom and pop local small business can't even get a $40,000 loan. And that's very disturbing. But, we are recognizing and by getting the feedback and hearing and seeing what happened. So a lot of folks have been saying that if they didn't have a pre-existing relationship with their banks, that they thought the biggest banks were giving out money to their existing customers, or they were giving out the largest amount because there's more fees collected. And so by the time these banks got around to the smaller businesses or new businesses, that maybe didn't have the existing relationship, the program was out of money. So one of the things that our colleagues that we've been fighting for is not just to replenish the dollars. We're all in agreement that we need to put more money into small business funding. But that's part of the deal that came together today was to put in $350 billion for the depleted small business relief fund. So that's part of what got agreed on today. The Senate is voting on it today. The House, I'm flying back to Washington tomorrow to vote on it on Thursday. Now, my understanding of what this legislation does is it includes additional things, some more guidelines of which businesses should and should not get these loans. There's more transparency and reporting standards. But the biggest thing that I want to mention is that there is specific money set in this round of funding. $60 billion is set aside for small community-based lenders. Okay, the idea here was to increase access for the smaller businesses who was getting left out, left behind, maybe didn't have those pre-existing relationships. I think it's going to make a big difference when more of the relief money is coming from smaller and nonprofit lending institutions motivated to support communities instead of all the banks coming from traditional banks that are that run profitable businesses. Because the idea here is, how do we get you the resources that you need, as opposed to thinking, where am I going to make the most fees and dollars and profit? So community financial institutions that we have included to be able to provide funding is community banks, something called CDFIs, or community development financial institutions, minority depository institutions, SBA microloan intermediaries, and SBA CDCs, which is a certified development companies. So these lenders will also be able to reach neglected and minority-owned businesses. So we had to push that dollars go to women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and so we will take a look at what the final package looks like, but that was the objective with this next round. So another important piece, and then I'm going to turn it over to Victor, another important piece that was in this legislation that House Democrats fought really hard to get in was $25 billion for testing. And why is that important? Because we all want the economy to reopen. We want people to get back to normal as much as possible. And so testing and tracing, being able to test as many people, to trace and follow through, is going to be key to make sure that we can get the economy back on track, and that we can go to opening up the economy for business again. So we strongly believe we can't have a healthy economy without healthy people. Some are painting a false choice between opening up the economy and protecting the health of people. I don't agree with that. Businesses cannot safely reopen, and consumers will not be confident to shop again until we can show that COVID-19 has been contained. And I think that's why testing is crucial for that. So having tests available is the first step in the economic recovery. So with that said, I am now going to turn it over to Victor Parker. Victor will give you the most up-to-date information on the resources available to you. Mr. Parker, are you with us?
I am with you. So again, thank you, Congresswoman, and thanks everyone for joining the call. It's really important that we provide you, as small business owners and entrepreneurs, all the assistance we can during this pandemic. As you can imagine, the Small Business Administration, and particularly here in the Los Angeles District Office, we are all hands on deck. We are moving fast and furious to make sure that all the resources are available to you here in the greater Los Angeles area. My territory covers all of LA County, Ventura County, and Santa Barbara County. So small business is certainly a stakeholder here for us and for our communities, and we want to make sure you have all the resources necessary to navigate through the COVID-19 pandemic. So just to kind of highlight a couple of differences and a couple of things that are going on right now as we await for the final legislation to be approved, I want to kind of take a moment to distinguish between our economic injury disaster loan and our paycheck protection program. Both programs are designed for small businesses, typically 500 and fewer employees, but we've also casted a wider net. This is a program that's now available for nonprofit organizations. It is available to self-employed individuals. It's also available to sole proprietorships, veterans organizations, all the different entities that make up our small business ecosystem right here in the greater Los Angeles area. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan is a loan that is designed to provide assistance to cover not only payroll, accounts payable, any of your fixed expenses that you would have in your business. The limit on that particular loan is up to $2 million. It can be spread out over a 30-year period. If you are a small business, the interest rate is 3.75%. If it is a nonprofit organization, it is 2.75%. Again, this enables you to spread this loan out over a 30-year period. So the whole idea about this is to make sure that we structure a deal for you directly through the SBA that allows it to be affordable as you recover from the pandemic. Again, this is a loan that you would engage directly with the SBA. So once the appropriations are completed, we will open the site back up where you can apply directly online at sba.gov/coronavirus, and you will be able to apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The other loan program that you've been hearing so much about and that the Congresswoman just talked about in terms of some of the additional parameters that have been added in this latest round of funding is the Paycheck Protection Program. The Paycheck Protection Program has a little bit more money involved into it, so it actually goes up to $10 million as the limit. However, there is only a 2-year maturity period. In other words, it would be due, if it's not all forgiven, you'd have to pay it back in 2 years, and the interest rate is 1%. Again, it's opened up to all of our folks. We're talking about, again, sole proprietors, small businesses that may be in the gig economy, Uber drivers, barbershops, hair salons, all the things that are in our community that we go to and patronize on a regular basis, we're able to capture in these two programs. And so it's really important that we distinguish the two programs, and it's a business decision. Which program is best for you really depends on your business structure and depends on kind of what your needs are. And one of the resources that we have that I really want to encourage folks to take advantage of is our small business development centers. Our small business development centers throughout the greater LA area are designed to help you take a look at your business structure. They're able to look at your financial situation, look at how you are structured for tax purposes, to help you make a business decision as to which program is the best for you moving forward. We also have our women's business centers and SCORE chapters that have all made themselves available virtually. All of our centers here have been set up now where they can do their services via webinar or via conference call to help you with your individual services moving forward. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Congresswoman.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Parker. Really appreciate you being with us and your willingness to stay around to ask a few questions. So we're now going to have Gary, who's on my team, to go through some of the resources available that the state and local are providing. We were unable to get a guest on short notice, but Gary will go through some of those programs, a brief overview, and then we will get to the question and answer session. All right, Gary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you all for being with us here this afternoon. Just wanted to quickly go over a couple of things that are available through the state's economic relief packages. But briefly, before that, I'll quickly touch on the family paid sick and family leave tax credit. Employers, of course, are encouraged to provide this benefit to their employees during this time. And if you're able to, there's an available tax credit based off of your quarterly payroll taxes. So we encourage small businesses to take advantage of this benefit in order to cover some of these costs in providing additional paid leave to family members as well. The state has created a disaster relief loan guarantee program. The benefit of this program is that it protects both the lender and the borrower because it has a guarantee up to 95%. What that means is that should the borrower default, the loan is still guaranteed for 95% pay. It's designed to benefit businesses with about 750 employees or less, and nonprofits are eligible under certain circumstances. And this loan, the guarantee is up, lasting for 7 years, and the interest rates are up for negotiation between the lender and the borrower. Next slide. In addition, California has expanded some of the unemployment insurance programs as well. Again, the design of these programs are to minimize the harm that COVID-19 pandemic has caused by allowing businesses to offer assistance and continue to pay employees that may be furloughed or laid off due to closures for businesses, and those employees that are unable to work because of health concerns. And if you have any further questions on these programs, feel free to reach out to our office, and we encourage small businesses within our district and beyond to apply for these benefits, and we're more than willing and available to help answer any questions that you may have. So now we'll turn it back over to the Congresswoman.
Well, thank you. And for those of you who are joining us on this webinar, you can download the information that we have in these slides. If you can't do that, you can always give us a phone call to make sure that we get you the information. And if we, for some reason, don't answer your question today, or you want to follow up with our office, feel free to do that. Let me start by giving you our number. It's 310-831-1799. That's 310-831-1799. And you should see a slide. If you are on the computer, you'll see the slide as well, where we also have a phone number for the local SBA office. I'll read it for those callers who are not on a video but are calling in. That number is 213-634-3855. Again, 213-634-3855. That's the number to local SBA as well. And so I'm going to go to the first question that I see in the queue. It actually is very similar to another question we received in advance. So let me read both of the questions because they're very similar. One of the questions we got in advance was, I pay rent in a commercial building. Other than the eviction moratorium, are there any resources to help me understand my rights as a tenant? So this is the tenant side. The eviction moratorium is the best guidance. It's the best piece of protection for both the residential and commercial renters at this time. It places the moratorium on evictions, and it gives tenants between now and November, December, depending on location or district, to repay any rent without interest or late fees. And I believe that's actually 12 months now. I think it was originally 6 months, and now it's 12 months. Now, if seeking rent assistance, trying to speak with your landlord is one option about short-term arrangements to pay partial rent with specific repayment dates. Also, we've heard folks say you can look into business insurance policy to see if there's any coverage in your policy under business interruptions. Although we've heard some folks say that they have been unsuccessful in that route. Victor, do you have anything to add on this front before I go to the other related question that we have on the screen?
The other thing that I would suggest, just as a general rule about a lot of the contracts that people have out there, is to take a look at your contract. There are a lot of provisions sometimes where if there are acts of God, force majeure, those types of clauses give you a little bit of latitude. And I would encourage you to go to the Small Business Development Center. We do have attorneys on staff. They cannot represent you, but they certainly can help you interpret what you have in your contract and help you prepare better when you do negotiate with your landlord or other folks that you may have contracts with during this time period.
Great, well, thank you for that. And I'm gonna read the next question, which is kind of related on the other side. It says, Michelle Hahn, who is which is on these Q&A here, as asking, for those paying rent on our leases for our business, will landlords who are currently on eviction moratorium be allowed to collect back rent down the line? The answer is yes. Renters will have 12 months after the moratorium ends to pay any back rent. I think previously it was 6 months, and landlords may not impose any new pass-throughs or charge interest or late fees for unpaid rent during the moratorium period. So the answer is yes. And hopefully, Victor, some of these businesses can get SBA loans that will help them pay this rent. And there will be an opportunity to have that forgiven. Is that right? If they qualify?
That's correct. So both programs are applicable where folks can use that for rent payment. Absolutely.
Right. Okay, well, great. Victor, I see Gustavo Sanchez has a question. Do you want to try to take that question? It says, I own a house
Sure.
business for 6 employees. Do we qualify for that program? I'm not sure if that's referring to one of the SBA programs that we just discussed. Would a small business with a house cleaning business with 6 employees be able to apply for an SBA loan?
Absolutely. They would be able to apply for both. They're eligible to apply for the economic injury disaster loan as well as the Paycheck Protection Program. They can apply for one or the other. They actually can apply for both. The only caveat is to make sure that the use of proceeds is not duplicated. So in other words, if you are using the Paycheck Protection Program as your loan and you apply for that, you should use that for your payroll, and then use the economic injury disaster loan to cover your fixed expenses, whether it be for your supplies, any other type of rent that you have, if you have other accounts payable that you would normally be paying, not extraordinary expenses, but normal accounts payable, you would use the economic injury disaster loan to offset those expenses during this time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. And it's just as we were doing this webinar, we got word that the Senate has passed the bill that we just talked about, the SBA bill, at the top of the hour. And so that has passed the Senate. It is now on to the House. As I mentioned at the outset, I will be on a plane tomorrow morning to Washington to vote on that piece of legislation. And so we expect that the bill will pass, and the SBA will have additional funds, replenishment of funds. And one of the things I want to note, Victor, is that I think it's really important for people to know that these are given on a first come, first served basis. Is that right? So people need to
That's correct.
as soon as the dollars are available. For people who are watching today, and right now we've been telling folks, hey, no more applications, there's no more funding. Is that right?
That's correct. So there's no more funding available right now.
So what do we tell people who are on this webinar now and say, look, I have not yet applied, and I know there's new money. Do we know yet when they could go apply? Should they get into the queue now? Do you have any advice for us to give our small businesses that are watching?
Absolutely. So if you're looking to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, again, you must go through one of our SBA approved lenders to do that. So the first thing I would do is contact your current bank to see if they are accepting applications, because you will need to apply through your bank, and it's a good idea to go ahead right now, get your application in, as well as any supporting documents that you may need, particularly if it's pertaining to your payroll. You want to make sure you have your payroll tax documents and all those other documents that you would need in terms of profit and loss ready to go, so that you would have those to upload into that system. Obviously, because of social distancing, a lot of the banks are navigating this remotely, but certainly contacting your current bank is the first step. Obviously, some of you may be a customer at a bank that is not currently an SBA lender or not participating in the Paycheck Protection Program. If you run into that scenario, please contact my office, and the number is on the screen, as well as our email address, and we can provide you with a list of lenders that are accepting new clients. So do not be discouraged if you contact your bank and they are not participating in the program. We cannot mandate that at SBA, but my team here We have been reaching out to our lending partners all across the greater LA area to find out who's accepting new clients and who is not. And we can provide you with that information and so you can be able to contact those folks. On the other hand, if you are looking to apply for the economic injury disaster loan, again, get ready. You cannot do anything in advance in terms of actually applying, but certainly making sure that you have your documents ready to demonstrate the economic injury as a result of COVID-19. You're going to want to have those documents prepared and ready to upload into the system. If for any reason you have a concern about that, our small business development centers are a tremendous resource where you can get one-on-one advisors to help you get prepared for that. So you can start doing that and make those phone calls and make those connections today.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for that. And just to remind everybody, the Senate bill that just passed puts $321 billion for the depleted PPP program. That's the Paycheck Protection Program, and then another $60 billion for loans and grants for the Economic Disaster Assistance Fund. So that's what just passed. So I'm seeing some more questions pop up. We have Elise Swanson from the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Elise, for all your work and the San Pedro Chamber's work throughout our community. Victor, do you want to read that and answer that?
Sure. So, and Elise, it's good to hear from you. And also, I want to echo the Congresswoman's thank you for all the great work that you're doing. The San Pedro Chamber of Commerce wants to know if 501c6 nonprofit organizations have been included in the new legislation for Paycheck Protection Program. So, as of the previous legislation, it was not specified that 501c6s were included into the Paycheck Protection Program. And by the time we have this particular webinar, I will have an answer for that to know whether or not they've been included in the new program.
Okay, and the 501c6s are nonprofits. They're eligible for, is it disaster assistance through SBA?
That is correct. They are eligible for the economic injury disaster loan. And
okay.
Their interest rate would be 2.75% for nonprofit organizations.
Okay, but what we're talking about though is the PPP program. And so you'll check
Correct.
on that. No, I know there was, we received a number of phone calls and we have been asking for them to be included, and we'll have to see what the final version is. And if you happen to have an answer for us, Mr. Parker, that'd be amazing. So,
Yep.
And I also wanted to take, well, before we get to Michelle Hahn, who's got some more questions on the screen. I actually, this is funny because the next question I had that was pre-submitted was about C6 organizations from the SBA nonprofits, from funding from SBA. So you just answered the second submitted question on that. So we can now, so the answer to that, the question was, are 501c6 organizations included in the funding from the SBA funding, which you just answered on that. And we'll get back to you on whether the C6s are included in the new PP funding that was just done today. So Victor, I want to go to the next. I want to go to the next question that was pre-submitted before we get to Michelle Hahn's question. Question is the PPP forgiveness or the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness 8 weeks requirement regarding dates employees worked or payroll dates? So it's regarding the PPP forgiveness. Is the 8 weeks the dates employees worked or payroll dates?
So those are actually the dates that folks are working. So it's not payroll dates. So regardless of whether you pay your folks weekly or whether you pay them once a month, it is actually covering the 8-week period that they work, regardless of how often you pay them. So they're talking about the 8-week starts, whether it's a part-time, 5 days a week, or whether they work some other type of shift. It is that full 8 weeks of actual working, not paid period.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Hopefully that answers our the question that was submitted in advance. Okay, so Michelle Hahn has some follow-up questions One of them is, I don't have employees. I'm a sole practitioner as a therapist. Can she apply for a PPP? I'm assuming it's a PPE, the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yes, yes. So as a sole practitioner, she absolutely can apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. Depending on how you navigate your taxes as a therapist, you would either use your 1099 or your Schedule C tax documents to verify the income that you would normally have. But that is the tax documents that you would use, and you are certainly eligible to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program.
Well, great. Thank you for that. And then Michelle also has indicated that I did apply, she says, for the SBA loan. She has not heard anything back, no email confirmation. Should she assume that she's in process, or should she reapply again? And I think this is a question a lot of people are going to have. If they've applied, they haven't heard back, should they apply again? What's the best advice that we should give folks on that?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and it's a little bit complicated under this scenario. So for the Paycheck Protection Program, as I indicated, those loans are done directly through our SBA lending partners. So SBA in and of itself does not have a tracking mechanism for those applications that were done directly through the lenders. So what you would need to do is to contact your lender and find out where you are in their application process, because there's two sets of numbers that traditionally occur in terms of the approval process. So at first, your bank is going to give you an application or a number to track their particular process for processing your loan. The lender is then required to enter that information into the SBA system to get an SBA number. We're not doing the underwriting or any of that piece of the approval process. This is just the mechanism used to track the funds, to make sure that we're monitoring the use of the funds as well as the total budgeted amount or the appropriated amount of funds that have been approved from the various lending institutions. So the key is to find out where you are in the process with your lending institution. If the lending institution has already acquired an SBA number, then you're fine. You don't have to wait for anything. The SBA lenders will approve or continue that process, and then they will disperse the funds in the next few days if you were already approved. If you have not received, or if the lender has not received an SBA number, they will be entering those into the system once we are able to start accepting applications again after the final vote is done. But the best place to start is with your SBA lender.
Now, if you were denied and you got a denial letter saying there's no more money, should they just follow up with their lender?
Right, they would again follow up with the lender. They would still need to reapply with the lender or determine what the lender's disposition is of the application. Some lenders could conceivably just pick up where they left off, which I've heard some lenders indicate that's what they're going to do. So wherever they stop, they will just pick up with those applications and keep going, as well as accepting new applications.
Okay, and Michelle had, I think, wanted to clarify for us, she was referring to not the PPP loan, but an SBA loan.
So if it's the economic injury disaster loan, if you have an application number, so if you apply for the economic injury disaster loan directly through SBA, you will receive an update via email. Now, granted, many folks I know have not received an update yet, just based on the sheer volume. This is the first time that we've had all 50 states declared at one time with respect to a disaster loan. However, the process is that you will get an update email, so please check your email regularly, which will give you the status of your loan. And they're doing these daily, so eventually they will get to you, and we appreciate your patience. We know it has been a long road to get to that point. Once you get that update, if you are approved, you will receive a subsequent email that will give you the additional information about the terms of your loan, as well as loan documents that you will be able to sign electronically, and then they will proceed with disbursement.
Okay. Now, Victor, I understand that as I was typing a response to one of the comments, that my typing made it to sound a little hard to hear, and that somebody wanted to reconfirm if the funding in this next round for small businesses applies to those without employees. Can you just reiterate, if you don't have any employees, you do not have any employees, can you apply?
Yes, you may absolutely apply. Again, if you are a sole proprietor or if you're self-employed, you will apply. You will use either your 1099, depending on how you file your taxes, to justify your income or to verify your income, or you may use your Schedule C in your taxes, or if you do it through a partnership, your LLC partnership if you are the sole individual of the LLC. But yes, you can apply.
Okay. Sounds good. We also received a list of other questions, some of which have been answered. I'm just going to read some of them off for purposes of acknowledging that we got these, and I think we answered them. The first question is, are there any loans for SBAs for small businesses? I mean, are there any loans for micro businesses or small businesses? Hopefully, you have heard the presentation by Mr. Parker about some of the loan programs, and my staff member Gary Hardy, who outlined some of the state and available programs more locally. Again, the presentation of the slides is available to download, or you can call my office or SBA if you want to go through those again. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, can people apply for more than one? Can they apply for both the PPP and the other loan? Mr. Parker, what's the answer to that?
The answer to that is yes. So you can apply for both the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. You may only apply for one Paycheck Protection Program loan, however. So just to make sure, you can apply for both, but you would only be able to apply for one of each type of loan. Again, the other difference is that you have to make sure you distinguish yourself in terms of the use of proceeds for that loan. If you apply for both, which you're certainly eligible to do, you may only use one of them towards payroll, and the other one would have to be used towards your accounts payable or fixed expenses.
Okay. Now, another pre-comment we got and a question we got was from the Los Angeles Maritime Institute. The comment and question is, they've applied 3 times for an EIDL loan starting on March 19th. They can't find out what's happening. When somebody can't find out the status, what do? Who can they call? What do you recommend?
Certainly. So the best thing to do if you applied, and I don't know whether that was you had to submit some additional documentation, or whether or not, I know in the middle of the process, I know we added some additional features where people could apply in various ways. But the easiest thing to do is to go to Disaster Customer Service, all spelled out together, at SBA.gov. Again, that's Disaster Customer Service at SBA.gov. That is our Office of Disaster Assistance, and those are the folks that are designed to actually be able to provide you with a status of your particular loan application. So make sure you retain the application number that you received. Usually they start with a 2 or 3 series. And so that's the number that you would need to use to reference the status of your loan. Unfortunately, even myself as a district director, nor my staff, we don't have access to the disaster loan portal. And so we're unable to actually view the status of loans just based on the personal identifiable information that's in there. That's obviously restricted. So we can't have the entire agency with that access, but the folks in the Office of Disaster Assistance do have the capability of tracking down that information.
Well, thank you for that. One of the other questions I'm getting already before this next bill is even finalized in law is it enough money? We saw how quickly the money was depleted and claimed when we did the first round of funding. And will this be enough? And I think that, first of all, I don't know if there could ever be enough, because we have so many small businesses across the country that are the backbone of this country and that we need to support. What the idea is that we put in this amount of dollars, and then we go to the next round of legislation. There is more heartburn in amongst the Congress and just, having a really huge amount. Unfortunately, this is this is the negotiated amount. Two sides have to come together to agree on an amount. I know that when I say we, my colleagues on my side of the aisle have been pushing for additional dollars and for those what I call earmark dollars, but set aside dollars for, the small businesses that are minority owned, women owned, that veteran owned, that may have a harder time because maybe they don't have enough, maybe they don't have a lawyer who's helping them out or the resources to helping them out. So we'll have to continue to see how this round goes. And then I know that Congress is talking about the next CARES package that we are already talking about and negotiating. So this is not all. I think we're going to see this replenished. We'll see how it goes. But we are on the Congress level are talking about dollars for local governments. Because when you think about what they do is the money that we give for local governments is going to firefighters, police officers, teachers. It's really going to those local governments on the front lines of the COVID-19 fight. And, we're on this together and we need to get through this together because the faster we do, the faster we open up shop, the faster we can get people out into the economy again. And hopefully the assistance that we're providing on the federal level is some help. But if you received a stimulus check, in California, $1,200 doesn't take you very far. It certainly doesn't even cover the rent for the month. So there are conversations about additional funding opportunities as well on the individual amounts that people have. And frankly, we want people to take those dollars and to support small business and shop locally and use those dollars to infuse into the economy. So we'll definitely see how this next round goes. And Victor, I want to thank you for what you are doing at SBA and helping people, businesses who need some assistance and who are frankly, desperate to keep their doors open. They're desperate to keep people employed, which is hard to do right now with the stay-at-home order. So we will continue to work with you and do all we can to help those in need. So I'm looking here and I think we've answered the questions. I've gone through the pre-questions. Many of them we've covered on what kind of loans are available, if they could still apply for funding. And so I would certainly follow up with your institution and hopefully now with the new round of funding, we'll have those who have community banks and local banks that they go to will hopefully be available as well. And so Victor, as I'm going to turn it over to you for any closing remarks, do you have any idea whether that lender list is going to expand given that Congress is adding the some of these smaller community banks? And two, any word on the C6s? I know we were trying to get an answer for the San Pedro Chamber. If you have any update on that and have that in your closing remarks. And mind you, we have more time. It's we've got another 5 or 10 minutes left. I don't see any questions, so I just want to make sure to give you an opportunity to say anything you want to add. And if we don't get to that answer today, I certainly can make sure that we have a follow-up email go out to provide everybody an information on the C6s, because this is not the first time we've gotten this question.
Absolutely, and I've gotten that question several times, and my staff is feverishly over there trying to track down somebody in DC to get the approved answer for that. So hopefully in the next few minutes they'll have an answer for me. My team is working on that as we speak. I will say, and to your point, Congresswoman, one of the things that we have done from an SBA perspective during the first round, actually after we started, was recruiting additional lenders that had not been traditionally SBA lenders. So across the country, we have recruited already 600 lenders. Many of them are right here in the LA area, and we already were kind of we are the lending capital of the world, even during traditional SBA processes. And so And we found so far that California, in terms of it, with the first round, the Paycheck Protection Program, the good news is that out of all the 50 states, including the territories, we generated the highest loan dollar volume for our small businesses in the state of California than any other state in the union. So I'm certainly looking forward to adding some additional lenders. We really want to make sure that our community lenders, credit unions, and some of the lenders that may not, again, traditionally participate with SBA, but certainly will have delegated authority to participate in the Paycheck Protection Program to move that forward, I think is going to be absolutely critical. We have worked pretty much 7 days a week since April 3rd, and actually starting before then, to make sure that lenders have access to the SBA system. That was one of the things that was a unexpected bottleneck, but many of our lenders right here in LA have expanded their teams as well to be able to better accommodate the loan volume that's coming in. And so getting them access, we've now done all those things over the course of the last couple of weeks. And so moving forward, we certainly will be able to hopefully move a lot of these loan applications much quicker, not only through the lending process, but absolutely through the SBA process to get folks to the point where they can actually receive their funding. I just want to reiterate, SBA and LA in particular, we really are the small business capital of the world, so we recognize the fact that our small businesses are hurting. We recognize that this is a situation that every type of small business, regardless of the industry or market sector you're in, has been impacted. And we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to help you as small business owners and entrepreneurs, and as well as our stakeholder organization, have the resources to support our community and our small business community and ecosystem. It's just absolutely critical right now that we get the word out. So thank you all for participating and being on the call. And again, thank you, Congresswoman, for having this teletown hall. I think it is just absolutely critical that folks have a good understanding of what the resources are or where they can get the additional help.
Well, thank you. I also want to make a note for those who may be participating today who are independent contractors, that you also can apply under unemployment benefits these days for state unemployment benefits. Now, historically, if you were an independent contractor, you did not qualify. But one of the things that our bill did, the CARES Act, was to make sure to make independent contractors and gig economy workers make them qualify for unemployment. And so even though historically you didn't qualify, you could also apply for unemployment. And if you qualify under the state system, you would be entitled to that extra $600 a week by the federal government. So if you're not sure, I would go out and certainly take advantage of that opportunity as well. If you're an independent contractor, we've certainly had some folks mention that as well. Victor, before I let you go, we had Gwen come up with a question here last minute under the chat. I don't know if you could see Gwen Butterfield.
I can.
You can?
I do see it.
Is
Yes.
this something that you want to read and address?
Sure. So Gwen's question is, my bank told me opposite, reason 8 weeks on the Paycheck Protection Program. Looks like F&M Farmers and Merchants Bank said you must spend all the money in 8 weeks on payroll. This would mean if my business did what they told me, that for the days worked on June 7th to June 15th would have to be prepaid on June 12th payroll instead of the usual June 26th payroll. How do I have SBA help them understand? Very good question. And I know that Farmers and Merchants Bank is one of the new lenders that I was talking about that came on board and had not traditionally been a part of the SBA program. Gwen, if you would send an email to the lado@sba.gov mailbox, I will have one of my lender relations specialists work with you and contact Farmers and Merchants just to make sure that we're all speaking out of the same set of guidelines and procedures moving forward. That has been a confusing issue for many of our banks, new or otherwise, and so we will certainly help them walk through that process.
Awesome, that's great. Let me type a response here. And we answered Gustavo's question. I have a question from Chelsea C. She says, I've not received my $600 a week yet. Is there a number for me to call for an update? So Chelsea, the $600 a week is an unemployment benefit. And you would first have to qualify for unemployment. And if you did that, you would be getting the $600 when you, at the same time that you get your state unemployment. So if you have not yet, if you have a question to follow up on that, you can call the unemployment office. They've just increased their hours and increased their staff to have somebody 7 days a week. Why don't I give you my number so we can get you that phone number for unemployment? My office is 310-831-1799. Again, that's 310-831-1799. And with that, I'm going to thank everybody for joining us and all the participants. Thank you so much for all you do in our community and for your business. Feel free to reach out to our office. Victor, again, thank you for SBA's work, all your work. I know you're working nonstop. And we on the congressional level are going to do what we can to get you the resources so you can help more small businesses. And so with that, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you stay home, stay healthy, do some online shopping if you can to support our small businesses. But let's stay healthy and help flatten the curve. Thanks all. Bye-bye.